Well, hey, Mason.
I sacrificed the second one just for that.
Dang.
Did it work? Did it catch it?
It caught it, but I said, hey, Mason, as soon as you did it. So
Oh, well, we'll work on it.
go get a third one.
Nah.
Okay. Hey, Mason.
What's up, Seth? How's it going, man?
Good.
Good.
Welcome, everybody, to Untitled Podcast, episode number 6.
Eventually, we'll have a title podcast, episode number 6.
Maybe we'll title the Untitled Podcast based on what we talk about.
Episode 6.
Excuse me for the voice crack. I'm working on that. Me.
Gotta get a cough button.
I know, right?
How's it going, man?
Today was a heavy day.
Yeah, what was heavy about it? Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we premised this thing over the idea of like, there was a period in time where we got together on quite a frequent basis just to have a cup of coffee, and we would either discuss things going on in life or in the world, and we decided for some reason that we should record it.
Well, you know what? I mean, I do miss like actually physically getting together with you. I do miss that a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, me too.
So I am glad that we have this alternative that we just put out there in the world for whoever to watch. I don't,
Yeah. So what's up, man? Let's talk about the day. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. The weather's been bad. It's been really, really raining. The political climate's bad. Don't know if you've been paying attention to that. Race relations in America are bad. Probably always have been, but they just seem real. Just seems real heavy. So just a lot, man. You just see a lot, and you see a lot of people, good intentioned people, getting on their Facebook wall and making a stand or pretending to make a stand. I don't think anybody's pretending to make a stand, but just like we keep doing stuff that does not make a difference. Like, you do not need to get on your Facebook wall and proclaim that you're not a racist. Like that is absolutely not going to change anything. And I hate to be so like cynical about it. Like, I've had like a few meaningful conversations on Facebook where I try to give people my perspective on what's happening. But they've literally, probably 2, this many. And I've been on the platform for a long, long time. So to me, like, I get it. Everybody has to process this, but like, that cannot be where you start and stop in terms of what we are experiencing as a country. And let's be honest, like, what we are experiencing as white people, as white men, is very different than what like our African American brothers and sisters have experienced growing up. Like, I think we have had a privileged ignorance for a good long while, and yeah, I don't know, man. Just a heavy day.
Yeah, I think that it's, but I think it's worth talking about. And I think that there's I think there's some good voices out there that we can point to, and I think that I try to be careful nowadays with how much of my actual opinion that I give on these things, particularly race-related issues, just because of the seat of privilege that I sit in.
Yeah, and so like I feel awkward about us even talking about this.
Oh yeah,
seeing
well,
as who we are.
I think that there's some benefit to if if just you and I, and by no means are we trying to foster a conversation for enlightenment in this area, because we have no idea. We can't even begin to fathom. Nor are we trying to get anybody to wake up to any newfound revelation of humanity, in my opinion. I think for me, this conversation and just ongoing thought process that truthfully for me has only been going on for a few years, of even acknowledging the just everything the travesties that still occur. I can't even think of a word that does it justice. But the realization, the only thing that I can come to now, if I'm having a conversation with another white guy, or if I'm even opening my mouth to discuss it, is that, I recently heard somebody talk about the idea, like, it's not the opposite of racist is not racist. Right. Just like, what, we had a conversation one or two episodes ago surrounding the book that I was reading, Anti-Fragile.
Mm-hmm.
And so the opposite of fragile is not sameness. Mm-hmm. Right? If something falls off of the top of a shelf and shatters, it's fragile. If it falls off the top of a shelf and stays the same, that is not the opposite of fragile. It just stays the same, right? Mm-hmm. So the opposite would be something that actually falls off the shelf and gets stronger. Would be the opposite of something that falls off the shelf. The actual polar opposite of it, right?
Right.
And so the opposite of racism is not racist. And
right, it's not a negative.
I have been. I mean, I won't speak for you. I'm pretty sure you'll agree with this. I have been, ignorantly racist.
100%.
I've been a part of. I have contributed to the problem, both by language, by actions in my life, by, but not also by direct activities or direct, whether it be jokes, whether it be whatever I've done in my past that has been an active contribution to it, but my inactivity in things that I saw happening that were wrong. For two guys on for two males on a podcast, I don't know what the what the Las Vegas odds were on us referencing a Glennon Doyle book, but but I've actually read bits and pieces of it, and actually listened to the whole thing. But there is one part where she references her daughter looked at a picture of, I don't know if it was a rally or a march with Dr. Martin Luther King, and the picture shows one white lady in there holding up a sign, and the daughter asked her mom, said, if we were there, would we have gone to march? And Glennon Doyle, apparently her first response, like, initially was, of course we would have, but her older daughter chimed in and said, no, we wouldn't have. And I said, why'd you say that? She said, we're not marching now. Yeah. We don't go now. We see these travesties happening. We see, what's happened in Minnesota.
Right.
With I believe George Floyd.
Right.
And for us up in arms as we get about thoughts and prayers, that's about been the extent of my proactivity
Yeah.
in this arena. And so, but yeah, I'm at a lot. Like, yeah, you're right, man. It's super heavy. And I don't know what, we're gratefully a part of a community here in Charlotte that is throwing discomfort to the wind and awkwardness to the wind and engaging in conversations
Yeah.
about how do we do this right. And we're not, and trying to learn, both the ways, learn and admit the ways we've got it wrong, and how we can be a part of whatever forward movement looks like for true equality, not this kind of perceived bastardized, marketed equality that is kind of pulled in front of us right now.
Right. And I think, these kinds of conversations can be really disruptive, because they do like pop bubbles of privilege. And like, if you're a white person in America, I hate to tell you, but you've lived a privileged existence. I don't care if you're rich or poor. Like, you have had a society working to help you.
You started on third base.
By design. And so I'm just gonna say that, and if that offends you, I'm sorry, but it's true. And I don't have to go far in the history books to prove it. And I'm a librarian, so back off. Okay, that's the one.
Well, and I think that if comments like that do offend anybody that listens to us, or maybe not even offend, but just pulls out a response, I think those responses are worth having. But we have to come at this. All of us have to come at this as an open mind. So if you're going to respond to this particular part of our conversation, I would make an ask that you respond coming to learn something, that if you already know all of the answers and that you're not open to dialogue, you're not open to back and forth and being open-minded, then I will ask you, I would ask you to save your comments, because if you already know the answer, then, and the answer is opposite of what we're saying, then there's no need really engaging with us.
Right. If you
we're here for a dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here for a dialogue in hopes of discovering a truth that happens through journey, not a truth that happens from who yells the loudest.
Thank you. Well said. Very well said. I think too, I just want to like go ahead and just say that. And so here's a great exit ramp if you don't want to continue on this conversation. But I think for me, I got into I put a post up on Facebook, and there was a lot of dialogue about that.
Well, truthfully, I've got Facebook up on the screen. I'm trying to find it. Did you take the dialogue off?
No, it's all still there. I
was trying to glance at it a little bit, but I mean, we don't have to get into it, obviously, but
yeah, but there was a lot of good that came out of that dialogue, and one of them was my friend Chris. He came at the very end of it, and Chris said, "Have you read any Thurman?" Oh, I know. Send me a link. And so Howard Thurman is an African American theologian, and I want to read something that I read, and I just started his major book, which is called Jesus and the Disinherited. And this is what it says. I got to find the quote because I do not want to butcher it because it's so good. Okay. Fear. Dagnabbit, I'm sorry. Fear. You must abandon your fear of each other and fear only God. And I think that's at the core of what this is. We have, for better or for worse, a system has been created where we fear one another. That means if you're liberal, if you're a Republican, conservative, if you're black, you're white, we have these systems of fear that keep us away from one another. And like the reason they exist is because men profit off of them. Plain and simple.
Well, if we went back, we could go back in time and this is an interesting conversation. It's not it's funny how we get into, obviously our conversations lead to stuff we've previously been engaged in, but so this idea of fear at its evolutionary level is extremely beneficial. It's actually the idea of fear that has kept our species alive. We are actually a very weak species, by the way. We walk upright with all of our major organs exposed, right? We're not that fast in terms of nature, right? Mm-hmm. There are animals certainly faster than us. There are animals certainly stronger than us, right?
Sure.
So, but there is this innate sense of fear and defensiveness that caused us to survive as a species, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I would argue that the original design of fear that was good protection, right? Like lion is, all of a sudden the area got quiet and too quiet, and something inside you said, "There's a lion there. I need to get out of here."
Right.
And you got out of here, and that's why you lived, right? And the one that ignored his fear did not get out of there, and the lion got them, and they did not reproduce, and you got away and you reproduced, so your genes kept going, right?
Right.
And so that fear was, that fear it becomes rewarded, right?
Sure.
So in that day and age, obviously very beneficial, right? Obviously also the day and age where if without the preservation of food, if food arrived, you ate as much as you possibly could. You overate.
Correct.
Because you didn't know, and your body didn't know when the next one was coming. So you overate. Fast forward, right? Mm-hmm. To today. And the fears that we have feel like life and death fears.
Oh yeah, they're very primal.
Yeah, I would dare say, like, I know of a, I've heard a story of a friend who told me that when Barack Obama was elected, that this person's parents, like, legitimately made the statement that could be the Antichrist.
Yeah, I had people in my
all of a sudden, we're taking these things and truth and hey, let's play it both ways. Mm-hmm. You and I, when I don't know if you and I, but I know laying in my bed in 2016, I was woken up at 3:00 in the morning with, my wife saying, "Holy shit, Donald Trump is the president." Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, like that same kind of Antichrist mentality, right? So all this to say, like, the fears that we have now feel like life and death fears, but they're so far from it. They're so far from it. It's the fear of, because you feel like your standard of life, that if something is given to someone else, then by default it is taken from you. And if something is taken from you, if you have to do with any less, then your quality of life or your life is now negatively affected. And that can trigger, without perspective or insight, can trigger that, while not being life and death, the body doesn't know the difference between the fear of the lion and the fear of being audited on your taxes, right? Like, the body doesn't know the difference in that fear. Fear is fear.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you're absolutely right. It's like, so it is fear, and this is a negative kind of fear, right? This is the negative kind of fear. But we could get, we could go all sorts of places, because this gets into a societal question, right?
Yeah, did you read the article I sent you?
I did. I was actually had that in the back of my mind of, like, that is going to transition
Yeah.
right into this, because obviously being in the fitness space and particularly the nutrition space, we talk a lot about like these types of things. And it even mentions in the article, one thing that I've always like, we should all be appalled that anybody goes without food.
Right.
That
Well, I mean,
hunger exists, for the amount of fucking waste that we have as a society, and for the amount of food that we throw away, that anybody goes without a meal, not because they don't have money. And you know what? I don't care if they're drunk and they blow all of their money on booze. Like, I really don't care about that argument. I don't care if they're addicted to drugs. I don't care.
right.
There is no reason that the system is set up the way it is that anybody should be going out without food, with the abundance, with the never ending buffet that we have access to.
Sure.
Okay, sorry, but yeah, I mean, that article like really triggered that part of it in me. So
Well, yeah, but I think just to bring everybody in on this, the article is called "If the Future is Like the Present, Our Civilization Will Collapse." That's
you should actually try to link that article up
will.
in the post.
I will.
Like we can start. Hey, one day we might actually have like show notes if we get a website.
I know, maybe one day. And it's by Umair. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I apologize. Haque. Hake.
But it's an easy Google. Like, if you like, when you sent it to me, the link didn't work that you sent me, but like I just Googled like the first three words, and the article was the first one to hit. So
yeah, so
I say the name of the article again.
Yeah, it's if the future is like the present, our civilization will collapse. So it's really nice, happy reading. But really, what it's talking about is this primal fear, living in this fear mentality, living in this idea that everything is a scarcity. And what that has bought us, and it's not tied into what it's referencing is really this coronavirus stuff, where we are having this real big experiment of freedom versus safety, and this real interesting conversation around what kind of country do we want to be? Do we want to embrace this radical individual freedom that we are so well known for? And, I'll be honest. I mean, Mason, we've talked about this. It does seem like, at what point do you compromise and start taking more risks to live your life and taking responsibility? But as a society, like, we are so incredibly different than most of the other Western societies who have seemed to come to consensus that they're going to try to play it safer. I'm making some gross generalizations, but just the idea of what you said, Mason, like this fear that you're impeding on me and mine, that ain't going to happen. And I'm going to compete. Yeah. I'm going to compete as hard as I can to make sure I get mine. And let's be honest, that's not serving us anymore. That doesn't serve us when resources become more and more limited because we overconsume. That doesn't serve us anymore because when we're choosing to invest in energy that ends up polluting our own home. Like, these things, the only thing that makes sense in it is the economy. And like, we have got to have some more imagination on what an economy needs to look like. We need an economy that works for us, like from a holistic level, so that we're not killing our planet. So
but that's not the economy, right? Like,
I know.
You hit the nail. Like,
right.
The economy is about one single thing. The economy is about money. Period. End of story. The economy is not about jobs.
I know.
Because if everybody was employed, but nobody was hyper profitable, then there would be something wrong with the economy, right?
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. But again, it goes to the other thing, like, if we have to distribute anything differently, right?
Oh no, that's me and mine.
Then yeah, I mean,
So if you get like more, and I'm contributing, like that's the real conversation. Why does he get more? Why does Mason get more than me?
Yeah. Well, yeah, or why do I have to pay? We could get into the conversation. Why do I have to pay more taxes for people who don't have jobs? Right? To pay for to pay for a service for people that don't have jobs? Why do I have to pay more taxes for public school systems when I send my kids to private school? Why do I have to pay more taxes to an X, Y, and Z, and go on down the line of obviously very privileged arguments, and then you make the arguments, and we all know that we're not going to these reigns, but people always go to people will talk about healthcare in other countries and the universal healthcare that exists in, say, a Canada, for example, and the first thing you'll hear from someone who is against that is, well, you hear one of two things. A, well, what kind of care are they getting? I've heard of a ton of people dying in Canada, but you'll also hear, but what's the tax rate?
Correct.
That's the first thing. Well, what's the tax rate? What's the tax rate? And that lets you know where our priorities, what we have been conditioned to care about. Because you don't hear. I mean, that's what we've been conditioned to is how much money's in my bank account, not what's my tax rate.
Well, and I think that kind of it's this really vicious cycle, right? So we are conditioned that way because we think money equals freedom, and freedom is the primary currency of America. Like, we are like one of the few countries that is set up to not trust the government.
Yeah, actually, there was an interview about that. And I wish I could. I'll have to dig. There's no way I can find it right now. But it was basically like.
But we have a history for that, right? Like we didn't trust England. We revolted. We won. We're like, yeah, no one's gonna screw us over like England did, and so we set that up. Then we had the Civil War, which was like two cultures, two economic models coming into conflict. And I mean, slavery is terrible, but it was an economic model too. Like that, it's this idea of. How do we make money? Well, you know what? This racism and slavery thing's doing really well, so we're going to set that up. No, we're going to fight about that. Like, it's just fascinating to me how morality gets tied into economics and how economics is always right there. It's always about who's making some money. So, but anyway, I probably need to edit all that out. But like going back to what we were saying is just this idea that, well, I just lost my train of thought. Definitely editing this part out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all right. While you get it back, I want to circle back to that thing that you did say. Like, there was a interview, and they basically said, like, why, I'm going to butcher it, but the punchline is that the difference between us and America is that we actually trust our government.
Right.
Like, we've actually voted these people in, and we actually trust the people that we voted in.
Right.
And
that's what I was trying to say is when you go back to the Civil War, like there was a whole lot of distrust, right? We don't trust the federal government as a Southerner. We definitely don't trust these rebels. So like
goes back to my point that we got into a little bit before. Like, we're too big of a country.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Maybe
too big.
Maybe you were right all along, Mason.
I mean, you can say like Canada's a huge country, but like a lot of it's uninhabitable. What is Canada like? Toronto, Vancouver? That's about what they got.
I'm sorry for all my Canadian friends listening.
We can make fun of Canadians.
No, Canada's lovely.
They're so nice. They were not offended. They're so nice.
I'm offended for you, Canada. They're the nicest people, and it's a wonderful country. It is very cold, so
yeah,
very cold, but it's gonna warm up.
Clearly.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, man. I mean, just to go back to even how you opened up, you're right, man. It is a heavy time to put, that on top of everything. And God, even to just talk about it like that, like that's not even on my regular daily radar. there was a news article about a lady who was walking. Did you see the article about the lady walking her dog in New York off leash?
Yep.
And she called the police on the African American guy that had asked her to put the dog on a leash.
Yep.
And it was interesting. So I showed my wife that article, and my wife said, my wife actually asked, like, why was he filming? And I said, I wonder, like, because it's not on my radar that anytime anybody shows any type of disagreement with me or any type of anger, like, I think that, and I would be curious to find out from somebody, maybe if we ever talk, maybe we could get Cedric or something like that. But shout out to our buddy Cedric Lundy. But if it's just instant, like it's instant, like the way I perceived that whole thing going down was like guys on his bike in Central Park and just, kind of mind his own business, sees a dog off leash. Who knows how the dog reacted? Like, I know how my dog used to react. Like, if my dog was off leash and reacted the way that she would react if she was startled, maybe by someone riding a bike by or something like that, she might act in an aggressive manner. And somebody's like, hey, you need to put that dog on a leash.
Right.
and not to mention that's the law in that park.
Correct.
Right. Like, you need to have your dog on it. That's the law. And so, the way I imagine that going down is like the dog reacts. That guy says, hey, you need to put that dog on a leash. And the moment that lady said anything except, you're right, sorry about that, that he just like instantaneous grabbed the film, I mean, hell, it was from somebody else that I actually learned how to behave during a traffic stop.
Right.
Like before I learned it, I didn't learn this till I was probably 31, 32, right? So now when I get pulled over, I leave my hands on the wheel.
Absolutely.
As soon as I pull over, I put both hands on the wheel at the top, and I wait until the officer is at my window. My window's still up. When the officer gets to my window, I look over, I make eye contact, take my hands off the wheel, I roll down the window, and I start having my conversation with my hands up here.
Right.
But that was at 31. Every time before 31, I would get pulled over, Seth, I would roll the window down.
Yep.
I would be in my glove compartment finding my registration and getting my license out before the cop ever got to my window. I was all over my car before the cop ever got there.
Last time I got pulled over was a long time ago because I am a good driver. I did the same thing. I pulled down my window. I was looking for my stuff. The cops came around, pistols drawn. And I'm like, what? And then I guess they eased up when they saw me like do this, like, whoa.
Yeah.
But like, no idea.
But that's something that, like, I guarantee you, particularly in the Black community, like,
yeah,
that's stuff that is I'm sure
it's a life and death situation. Like, I hate to say that,
yeah,
but that's the truth. It's a life and death situation for them, and that is not right.
No, 100%. So anyway, it's tough, and I would love to have longer, more in-depth conversations about it, but I would love to have those conversations with somebody that can contribute to them.
Absolutely. I think the one thing I will say is that what white people can do is talk to other white people and be brave enough to confront ignorance, to confront racism, to confront. And I think we got to be really clear too, like Avenue Q said, we're all a little bit racist. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
We have racist thoughts. That does not make us racist people. And I think we need to have this, like, now there are racist people. Let me be clear.
Well, yeah.
But I think, like, we need to look at it as any other transgression. Like, man, I got to get better on that. It takes work. Like, it takes some real uncomfortable. It takes yourself being uncomfortable, and it takes yourself putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and being quiet, which is not what we're doing tonight. But I think, like, if you're in conversation and African Americans telling you about their experience, shut up and just listen.
Yeah.
So.
And don't try to relate. Just learn.
Just learn.
Yeah.
And like, I know, to my white friends who are on Facebook proclaiming how bad this is, and it is bad. It's bad. And who are running miles and things like that. Like, I know your hearts are good and well-intentioned, but you have to understand that cannot be the only thing you do. That is not enough. And I don't know what you need to do, but you need to figure that out as an individual and take responsibility for it.
I want to, I believe it was on Andre Henry's Instagram today. I'm going to look it up real quick. If you just give me a second. And we'll throw this up there in the on when we post the episode as well. But you know what I like about someone who's willing to teach people like Andre Henry, like the real truth about if you really want to do something, if you really want to learn, like, and one of the things that he talks about is like, you need to start reading, you need to start understanding.
Right.
And so yeah, he put up a post today, and he said, if you're asking what you can do, this is the post he put, if you're asking what you can do this week, this is the book you need. Start here. Thank you. And the book is called Chokehold, Policing Black Men by Paul Butler. So I actually I put in an order for it, and we'll link that post up. But that's the type of stuff that you know that we need to do. And like you said, man, we need to have conversations and listen to our you know, black men and women who live with this shit every single day.
Right.
And if we say like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Like, I got busted at a keg party once when I was 18. Like, fuck that. Like, that's nothing. That is nothing. And, you know, I mean, gosh, we're already 45 minutes into this. I can share kind of a universal story if you think it'd be worth it. But like, I use myself as an example of I am a great example of the unfair privilege that takes place in this country, period, end of story. So for those of you, and I won't make it too long in case it's worthless, but for those of you that don't know, I'm actually a convicted felon. In 2007, I was arrested for selling cocaine to an undercover officer. In 2010, I got a job in the first year that made, you know, around $60,000 a year. 3 years later, 3 years after being convicted of a felony drug charge, not misdemeanor, felony drug charge, I was able to get a job, not just any job, but a job that was a front-facing public sales job that allowed me to get back on my feet professionally, that I hugely benefited from, my family hugely benefited from. And, you know, conversations that I've had with other people about that very thing. You know, I've had conversations where, and I had an inside track in that job. I knew somebody that worked at the company who cared a lot about me and got me an interview, and I went in the interview and did well. But I've had conversations with people in that organization, particularly the person that got me that interview. And I said, look, given all the same circumstances, same education, same felony conviction, one time offender, the only thing on my arrest record, right? You know, but if I'm black and you get me that interview, do you think they hire me? I said, yeah. I said, do you think they hire me as a sales rep, as a front-facing sales rep? Or do they give me a job, working in production, maybe working, which is a good, good jobs, good jobs, but not outside sales, not commission, right? Not front-facing, not upward mobility of career path, right? And in that moment, the person was honest. He's like, "Oh, no, they wouldn't have done that." And so I acknowledge, man, like third base all day. And I'm not saying, please hear me, I'm not saying that I should not have been given that opportunity. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying how glaringly obvious it is that opportunity would not be given if I were not white. That's the problem. The problem is not that I got the opportunity. The problem is that that opportunity is not equal at whatsoever. Correct. So there's and that only took 3 minutes. Okay, good.
Thanks for sharing, man. Really appreciate that. Yeah, Yeah, there's more to this subject than we could cover in probably 10 years' time of us talking constantly. And even then it would be probably useless, practically useless, because it's two white men talking about it. So, yeah, just a heavy day. Heavy day, and I really care about this country. I care about us as a people, and I feel like we really have a chance to change our trajectory. I mean, every day we get up, we have that chance, but I just, we gotta wake up and realize, is this the world we want our kids to inherit? I mean, is this it? Is this the best we can give them? That bothers me. I look at my boys and I think, God, what are we doing? What am I doing? What am I teaching them to help them get through this? The world, the world itself is so unfamiliar to what we knew growing up. It just is. And so I just think this country should be better, and it should be a better example to the rest of the world on what freedom looks like. And I think that's the thing. I think freedom to me is not individuals carrying guns, and not that there's anything wrong with having a gun. Don't hear me, but carrying guns and...
Well, that being the thing that defines your freedom.
That's not freedom, right? I get it. I get it. It's great we can have guns. But do we need AK-47s? Do we need these AR-15s? Why do you need that? Now, I know a couple guys up in Iredell County who shoot coyotes with them. I'm pretty cool with that. I'm okay. I support that. Jonathan Sells, if you're listening, I watch you on Facebook shooting those coyotes, man. Keep it up. But really though, it's just is it worth the risk we're taking to continue to have such big freedoms when our most vulnerable people, their lives are at stake?
But I think that, and Seth, that right, you just hit the nail on the head with it's the wrong filter. Like again, man, when we have that merry-go-round of a gun conversation, that lasts for, tops, at best 2 weeks after every shooting, and then the conversation goes away again. The conversation always revolves around individual freedoms. Man, we talk about tax rates, individual freedoms. We talk about healthcare, individual freedoms. what we never talk about is we never, and man, it's happening. Unfortunately, it's starting to happen on the left as well, where things are becoming more individualized
Yeah,
as
I can
well.
tell you
And
what.
that's what worries me even about just our bipolar political system, right? And you and I've talked about kind of, I mean, for me, it depends on what topic you ask me where I land. But at the end of the day, if we're having, we cannot have, we will never achieve ideal communal nationwide freedom if our focus is on individual freedom.
Individuals can always be divided.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
If we don't have a collective narrative that says, yeah, you know what, we're going to go for this, we're screwed, man.
Yeah. What if we just collectively said that no, as a country, if we started somewhere, I don't know, like no human being under the age of 18 will ever go without a meal. What if we just started there without a nutritious meal, without access to quality food,
right,
and quality health care? Like, what if we just baseline, leave everything else the same, and as a community, as a country, we started with what the next generation is going to be. So maybe we start to say, like, okay, this is going to be we're going to strive to make this the healthiest generation. Right. I think, what if we just agreed to that, then, what could change? Like, think about all the things we could reverse.
And I think, like, we as a country, we have an interesting story. Like, World War II happened, right? And we rose to that occasion, and we won. And it was a terrible battle, but from that winning, we became a superpower. And then we got into this idea, okay, this is good. We've established democracy in all these other places. It's been successful. And so the narrative was like, establish democracies in all these other places. Like, I guess I'm not going to go through all of the nation's, like, turmoil, but, like, we need a story. We need something that rallies people together. We don't have that right now. And we can't even agree what America needs to be. John,
What's the story that you could come here and make it? And
right. And that's a good story, but, like, we can't even.
But that's an individual story.
Yeah, it is, but, like, and I'll put a big asterisk on this in terms of equity. That's not the story that was given to everybody, right? That was not an evenly distributed story by any.
Yeah, that's the marketing. That's what's on the billboard, right? That's what the Statue of Liberty is holding up, right? Like,
right, but
come here, you too can make it, and, like, you know what? No, you can't. It depends.
It depends, and I think
for
many people they could. Like, for many people, like, escaping communist Russia or pick a terrible country and getting here and then making it. Like, there's plenty of stories like that. But there's also this, but that story doesn't outweigh the story of, well, my grandfather was a slave. Like, those things both exist, and they're both the truth. And I guess, like, here's the thing: when we talk about responsibility, it's our responsibility. It's our country. We gotta get involved with it. We gotta get involved in the political process. And we look at politicians like, man, they're a bunch of jokers, and they are. But who's stepping up to not be a joker from our generation? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, like, nothing changes until some good people actually try to get into the office.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Right, exactly. Man, my voice is cracking tonight. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, everybody.
Well, I certainly think this has been our heaviest hour.
Yeah, it sure has.
But it's good.
Yeah, there wasn't a space rocket today, so,
Well, yeah, we'll talk about the space rocket next week.
Maybe they'll shoot it off next week. So
it wasn't until late in the day that I realized, like, I was like, why is this such a big deal? And then I realized, like, oh, this is freaking SpaceX. This is the private industry.
We outsourced our own, like, when we need to go to space as a country, we hitch a ride on Russia and Kazakhstan. Like, man,
I don't know if you do this with your kids, all right? Like my daughter who's almost 4, she says, Daddy, can we go to Mars? And I look at her like, yeah, we can go to Mars. Sure. We'll go. We have to wait for you to get a little older, but we'll go to Mars. Like I'm not ruining that for her. I'm like, yeah, we go to Mars. Like, imagine like Elon Musk as a kid, like, hey Dad, can we build a rocket and go to space? But he's like, no. He's like, I think we can. You know what? I'm going to do it.
But I mean, I'm going to circle back on that. Like, having an imagination. Like, we need a reinvigorated imagination of what America could be.
Yeah.
That's
why can't I build my own rocket?
We're the thing in the way. If we cannot think of it, if we cannot like think, man, if you can't believe it, it's never going to happen. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, you're right. It
doesn't matter what it is. If you don't believe it can happen, it's not.
Yeah.
And I could quote Jesus, but I'm not going to. But it's the truth. It is the truth. If you don't believe it can happen, well, guess what? It's not.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, the belief that something can happen is the catalyst that moves action in a certain direction.
I think the belief.
And so,
yeah, well, I agree, and I would say the belief is incarnated in the action, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the belief continues to get stronger because it's affirmed by the first actions, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if I want to build my first rocket, okay, I'm going to need to do decent in school, like particularly probably in math and science. And so you really try hard in math and science, and you start getting A's. Okay, I'm good at math and science. If I really try, I'm good at these things. Okay, I can build a rocket. Okay, I probably need to get into a decent school and get a degree in something A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay. I did that. I can still build a rocket. You know what I mean? Like, and so just that catch, dude. This is why I work out. This is why I train. Universal athleticism. That's what happens.
Are you running for office?
What's that?
Nothing. I said, are you running for office?
Yeah. Can I?
If you
wonder what office can I run for as a felon? Can I be elected to public office with a felony on my record? It's been 13 years.
So when does it ever go away?
Just go away? Let me tell you something about the beautiful state of North Carolina. I love the state of North Carolina. I'm an advocate for the state of North Carolina. I don't agree with all the stuff that we do, but in the state of North Carolina is one of the worst states to catch a felony in, because it's one of the hardest states to get rid of it. And we won't even have to get into the legal system about, like, oh, you've done your time. No, I did my time in jail and my years of probation, supervised probation afterwards. And you know what? I still have to check on that little box every time I fill out a job application. So I'm still judged by that thing. And that can obviously get into the significant issues that other races deal with that.
Absolutely.
Like, I look at the issues that I have with it and magnify those by who knows what number. Full circle. But yeah, I wonder what office I could run for.
I don't know. We'd have to do some research on that. But yeah, belief. It's pretty important.
True story. Because you'll never make steps in that direction if you don't believe it. So if you don't actually believe things can change, right? If you don't actually think that things can change, then you'll just sit there and you'll just bless their hearts and shake your head and, oh, that makes me so sad. Thoughts and prayers. That's what that's what you do if you don't think things can actually change. You give thoughts and prayers and a Facebook shout out. If you actually think things can change, then you put some action
Yeah.
in a particular direction.
And I know we both need to do a better job of that. Let's be honest.
Oh God! Look,
Every day.
I am the king of talking extremely passionate about things that I do not do. I will be the first one to tell you that I need to be
you on that.
significantly more active. It is not, your words, your intentions don't mean a damn thing. Your words mean about this much more, and your actions mean infinitely more than all of that.
Talk is cheap.
Yeah, and the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Man, that's the truth.
Yeah, you and Jack could care less about your intentions.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look closely enough, hell, I don't even know what my intentions are half the time. Like I'm serious. Like I'm doing good to like get up and have a conscious thought. Like really, like to be like, oh God, I'm feeling fearful today. Like,
are you in the bathroom?
No, this is weird.
I'm sorry, I just realized.
I know. That's
you
strange.
were going down a great line.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I'm such an asshole.
You are. No, this is my office, which has its own vanity sink.
Oh, does your office have its own shower?
It does not. This house was built in 1968, and man, it's weird. This is weird. This is the only bedroom with the sink. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Now my webcam is down. What the heck?
We're a freaking hour and 3 minutes into this, and I just glanced down into the left on the screen here.
Well,
and I'm
man,
this is
an upgrade because this was an upgrade because I've been.
It was just me being honest. Like I could no longer focus on what you were saying.
It's fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It don't matter.
I'll do better about that.
It's okay. My microphone appears to be noisy.
Ooh, that's fun. Fun.
I think this was a good conversation, man. And I know, like,
I'm glad we had it.
Yeah, it was heavy. And if to close this out, if anybody has questions about anything we said, leave a comment, shoot us an email. But we certainly aren't experts on anything. We're just having honest reactions.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We are going to commit to do the best that we can with the information that we have, and we will certainly get it wrong. We will certainly offend, and we are certainly open to being called out. And
we will acknowledge when we're wrong.
And we're certainly willing to admit that when we've missed the mark. But our goal in any conversation, and we've had a lot of just personal conversations over the years, and our goal is always to do the absolute best that we can in this life. And that's why I think that's kind of what our friendship has been predicated on is a support structure of two guys just admitting that they don't know a whole lot, but that we can kind of throw these ideas off of each other and be open to what comes back, and again try to be the best, first and foremost, the best contributing human beings that we can be, the best husbands that we can be and the best parents that we can be, and do what we can with what we have while we're here. So yeah, that's just a little tidbit of I think what we're kind of about, especially when we get into these serious conversations and why these conversations even take place.
Yeah. And I think too, we just kind of jumped right in. I mean, there was no fun giggles in the front end of this. So, thank you. If you made it to the end of this, we appreciate it. And we'll do it again next week. Maybe not but we'll
if you have any resources out there that would be valuable for us to understand, to learn, please share them with us. We'll post them back out there. And this is always an ongoing conversation. I'm sure we will come back around to it in the future. And we will we'll get some links posted up when we post this episode as well.
Great. Mason, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Let's do it again soon, Seth.
Okay.
See you later, brother.
See you later, man. Bye.